Just a reminder that if you are not on mute, please mute yourself at the beginning of the meeting so that we can have minimal background noise. And when you're speaking, please feel free to come on to talk with us. We'd love to have a conversation about some of the topics we're talking about today, but please do stay on mute when you're not talking. And if you want to just put any type of comment or question in the chat, Syntia will call on you or read that out in the process as we're moving through the webinar. Hold on a second. I'm gonna turn off my heater. I'm freezing in North Carolina. It's very cold. All right, so let's see. Okay, this is started. Let me share my screen. And then we will get started. I'm so excited everybody's here. It's a good group. Okay. So welcome everybody. This is the second of a series of webinars that is being sponsored by the International Registry of Counselor Education Programs, the International Division of KCREP. I am Dr. LoriAnn Stretch and I'm the Managing Director for IRCEP. It's an amazing job. I have to pinch myself every time when I think about it and get to do it. It's such a great opportunity. Today, I've invited some of our International Research Forum participants to come and talk to you about the International Research Forum. I'll be chiming in as well. It's something that I think most of us that are involved really like and enjoy and really appreciate the support. So I'm excited to talk to you a little bit about it. I am going to make this full screen. There we go. Okay. So a little bit about IRCEP to get us started. As I mentioned, we are affiliated with KCREP, the Council for Accreditation of Counseling-Related Education Programs, and our vision is to provide global support for the professionalization of counseling and quality assurance in counselor education. So we really are focused on helping programs be the best that they can be, but not necessarily from a US-centric perspective. The reason that IRCEP was created is because KCREP was getting requests from international programs asking if they could join KCREP, but because of the differing natures of education and culture and things around the world, these programs didn't necessarily meet the US-centric standards of KCREP. And so we created, the group that came together in 2009 created IRCEP, and we are celebrating our 10th year. And we are trying to achieve our mission of establishing and maintaining quality assurance standards through 5 goals: promoting and maintaining quality assurance standards, facilitating opportunities for counselor education program reciprocity, providing support and consultation to counselor education programs, facilitating information and resource exchange, and promoting professional counselor education standards with regulatory authorities. So we are working all over the world. It's a global perspective, and we are really excited to be with you today. That was just a quick little overview of IRCEP. All right, let's see. So our goals for this particular webinar are to describe the purpose, structure, and logistics of the International Research Forum, which started in 2018, identify the benefits of forum participation, share tips for successful international research, explore 3 components of culturally responsive research, and discuss tools for addressing ethical considerations and challenges. And get it, there we go. So I'm gonna ask each one of our panel members to introduce themselves. So Trish, if you would start us off and tell us a little bit about you and your international experience.
Okay, hello everyone. My name is Trish Kimball and I currently work at Liberty University in the clinical mental health program. I do a lot of teaching of ethics. That's kind of one of my specialty areas. And then actually lately I've been doing a lot of mentoring of PhD students, a lot of teaching internships and supervision internships with the PhD program. I have been a clinician for about 22 years, so an LPC in Virginia, which is where we're located. And my experience internationally, I actually lived in Kazakhstan, which is in Central Asia. I lived there for a total of 2 years. The first time was a little different. I was with more of a humanitarian organization. And then back in 2010, I was recruited and taught in a counseling program that was run by a faith-based institution in Kazakhstan. And so I ended up spending close to a year between going and teaching and then doing the students' clinical supervision. The school that sponsored the program was a school out of Germany, which made it a really interesting experience because Our ground supervisor was Canadian. I was the primary instructor, as you know, from the USA. We had a supervisor from the German school, and then we were working with a wide range of students who were Kazakh. We had a couple German students, a couple Russian students, and a couple Kazakh Korean students. So that's my experience. I've done a lot of traveling. I'm really interested in the impact that international immersion trips have on counseling students, and had the benefit of doing one of those about 18 months ago in Nepal, and I'm getting ready for another one in the spring to Korea. So that's me.
Thanks, Trish. And Synthia, I just noticed that we abbreviated your name accidentally, but I'll let you explain. So you're up next. It's a little weird on the sound, Synthia. Hold on. You might want to. You sound like Mickey Mouse. You might want to switch to phone audio. So on the bottom left, and I'll let Keiko introduce herself, and then we'll bring you back. Okay. So Keiko, if you want to introduce yourself.
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Keiko Sano. I'm from Japan, and I came to the States in 2011 in order to pursue my master's degree in counseling here. Right now, I'm a PhD student and also teaching at Antioch University, Seattle. And I'm also working as a counselor in the community as well. My main experience in this country is more like seeing clients from diverse population, but at the same time, my research interest in more of counselors and supervisors, instructors come from outside of the United States. So I am really passionate for understanding what is really cultural diversity in the counseling field. So yes, thank you. Nice to see you, everyone.
Thank you, Keiko. Let's try again, Cynthia. See how it goes. No, you're gonna have to sign back. Sign out and sign back in. It'll see if it does it. Sometimes it's just a little weird. All right. So when you come back in, let me know. So I can give a little bit of an introduction for Synthia while she is signing out and signing back in. Synthia and I actually met when she was a doctoral student at NC State. She's done a tremendous amount of research and study abroad and experiences like Trisha's talking about. And she also has really worked with minority underrepresented communities in our area of North Carolina, especially working with those who are immigrants who may be here legally or illegally and what that involves. She's done some incredible work, and she's originally from Honduras and is just a dear friend and colleague, and I just love working with her. So we are actually in the process of starting, hopefully, to work on a study abroad immersion, looking at the experience it has on faculty and there from a research perspective. So a little bit about my own experience. I have lived abroad. I've lived in the UK and Costa Rica, and I've also teach in Canada. And so I've done research in several different areas, Panama, Costa Rica, the UK, and am currently working on a couple of international projects right now. Just love working globally. I really like to see how counseling is done outside of the US and try to bring that back to the US in any way we can. All right, let's continue. Oh, go back. So a little bit about the International Research Forum. It is monthly meetings. We tend to meet September to May because a lot of us are off doing other things in the summer, like trips and study abroad trips and things like that. We are consistently meeting the first Monday at 1 p.m. Eastern. The next meeting will be December 2nd. And now we are now adding a second meeting per month, and that'll be the third Monday of each month at 9 a.m. We're really trying to have a span of time so that we can meet the time zone requirements of some of our international partners as well, knowing that, you know, our furthest away is 12 hours in our Singapore campus. And so we really want to make sure that everybody has an opportunity to participate in these if possible. We do meet via Zoom, this platform that we're using today. And I really do describe it as an open space to really share opportunities and challenges about research, even just the isolation, because oftentimes I've found that I might be working at a university that says that they have an international focus, but when I get there and I actually start talking about global context and international, they don't always speak the same language that I do. And so it's really nice to come together with a group of like-minded partners who we can share resources and support, and even have accountability partners. Like, did you do what you said you were going to do? Keiko's been getting a great experience with that with her dissertation. We've been checking in with her every month about how she's doing. So it's a community of scholar practitioners, and it really does. I mean, you guys know how it is. Sometimes you have a meeting on your calendar and you're like, oh, I don't have time for that meeting today. I really just, I have so much to do. I have to grade these papers, and, and I'll go to the meeting. I'll be like, no, I'm going to make time for it. And I'll go to the meeting. By the end of the meeting, I am so happy and so glad that I came to that meeting, because I leave the meeting feeling really energized and really being able to recenter my focus of, working globally. So we are going to hopefully be launching the database in January. We're launching a new website, thank goodness, in December. And hopefully part of that we're hoping to build into it is a database of existing research projects that are going on, to let people know what's happening around the world and if they can get connected with it. So that is a little bit about what the International Forum is. I would like to invite the panelists to talk about their experience. And I don't know if Synthia has been able to get back on yet.
She said she's back on.
Okay, so Synthia, you're back. Hi.
I'm back. I'm not sure how do I sound.
Yes, you sound wonderful.
Yeah, you see, you had to turn everything off and back on to do anything.
Yes.
Well, thank you for the introduction.
Yes. So if you want to tell a little bit, because you've been with me the longest, I think, in the forum. You and Trish maybe have been on the longest. So maybe talk about your experience with the forum and what that's been like.
Oh, yes, perfect. Well, I think I have a few of my own experiences as being an international faculty. I'm from Honduras. I have done a few things with the study abroad. I even did after my master's, I did a program in Toronto with a very diverse group of people from all over Latin America. So doing research on drug prevention. So I have had a few experiences on doing research and being with international faculty and peers and colleagues around the world. So it has been very interesting, and I have a lot of passion with cultural competence and being able to make those connections and be able to help our students in learning those type of skills. With that said, the forum has been a very, very, very empowering and energizing space for me. For many of you, you might know that doing research is a little bit isolating, and it's very difficult to find other people that have the same passions that you have, especially within your own little system, institution, university, wherever you're working at. So having a space of like-minded people talking about things that are interested to us and that we are passionate about has been amazing. And being able to also, in my case, to share a little bit of my own experiences and my own challenges and frustrations, and also kind of give a word of support to others and say, well, we can do something and we can find similarities, and hopefully in the future we might be even be able to do research together or publications. I mean, and any type of scholarship work will be fascinating. So just being able to have those works, that space to talk about it and to share with others has been amazing. So thank you for that.
Patricia, Keiko, would you like to share?
I can share real quick. So I think the big thing for me is having that community of people who are interested in similar things. I think that's really been one of the most significant parts of this. And inside of that community, having people to bounce things out off of. So like for me, I'm starting to formulate a research project that would actually go back and look at the students that I taught in Kazakhstan. And so this forum's been great just to bounce ideas off of people. But I think on top of that, and I was thinking about this the other day, I think being a part of this forum has also made me a little braver. Like when I go to conferences, I tend to really focus on the international presentations. So like when I was at ACES, I went to a lot of the international ones. And then because I think of us meeting together, I really, took some risks, went up, talked to some people. One person I actually bounced the research idea that I have in my head off of, and just asked her, did it sound valuable? Did it sound doable? Because for me, I'm newer in the research field. I graduated about a year and a half ago, and research is not something I had done as a clinician. And so I do know for me, the community, but then it's also helping me step out more in other places and building even a larger community.
Yes, for me, like LoriAnn said, this is a real community for me to complete my dissertation. So I know we will be meeting once a month, and I know I have to make some progress to report to the team. And that was a very, very positive pressure for me to be able to catch on. Otherwise, it's been so isolating process, not as a dissertation, but my theme was, I was doing a research for foreign-born supervisors, and there's many questions I was having. What is my biases as a similar situation, foreign-born counselors and supervisor. So this community has been really giving me the encouragement and also the language around, and this shared experience has been huge for me. And when I was addressing the research interest, this is a place or space for me to do the brainstorm and asking myself more questions about what I really want to do, where should I start, where can I start, and so on.
Mm-hmm. And Keiko, I also would say that the forum might have been helpful to you in your data collection.
Yes, exactly. That's right. Yes, I reached out to the LoriAnn and Trish, Syntia, when I was looking for the participants. I know this foreign-born doctoral supervisors were a very, very small population. And you all helped me to recruit those participants. Otherwise, I didn't think I had enough people to participate.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you're so right.
Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you all. That's good. Now, Syntia pointed out to me when she was reviewing the PowerPoint that my map was upside down. And the reason that my map is upside down is that I really do appreciate looking at the world in this perspective, because it forces us to not have a US-centric approach to looking at the world, because whether some people might not agree, but the US is not the center of the world. And so this really forces us to look at it in a different perspective. And what I've done here is I've indicated on the map where members from the forum are from, or where research is currently going on with the forum or has been going on. So I think it's really interesting to see that we're pretty spread out over the world, but we want to do more. We want to achieve more, and we want to accomplish more. So we're really excited about where we are doing work, but we also want to invite new members into the forum so that we can do even more. So that's kind of what that's. All right, and so with the global focused research, I really wanted to highlight some of the things that I've learned in my research, but also I know that the common themes that I've heard from all of these panel members about how to do research and in global focus. So I'm gonna let the panel members just, you guys can just pick and choose which ones you want to talk about, but I will let you guys take over. So I don't know who wants to go first. We obviously have not practiced, so it's kind of flexible.
I'll take one.
All right, thanks, Trish. Go ahead.
Yep. Because this is a big one for me, is the time is relative. I know for me, I've been thinking about this particular research topic for over a year now. I would say really closer to maybe 2 years. And at one point, I started getting a little discouraged, like, should I just throw it away and just move on to something else, because it didn't seem to be making much traction forward. And just got a lot of encouragement that, it takes a long time not only to formulate good international research, but then you have to look at things like funding, because like for my situation, there'll have to be a translator involved. And, it's halfway around the globe. And so, you know, just really working to put those pieces together. And so I think it's just been, I heard before I joined this forum, international research is going to take you longer than domestic type of research. But now I'm like, yeah, it is. And not to get discouraged just because it doesn't fall together immediately, because there really are a lot of moving parts.
Go ahead, Syntia.
I think with that said, definitely it's not easy. It's not easy work. And I think that the next square that we have in the screen is actually talking about relationships. And I think that's one of the things that take more time and take longer for you to actually figure out who can you make connections with, and what are the valuable connections that you can have in terms of learning about the culture, about the place, about the people, about the population you want to do, but also about the procedures in place in different places in the world. So it is more than just jumping in. I think we are very used to, again, very US-centric way of doing things. And that doesn't always work. So, for example, for me to do any type of things with Honduras, it's more about the connections and the people and talking to people and knowing who to talk with rather than anything else and any other procedures or paperwork, or, you know, they have their own, I think they're very new at putting together IRBs. So it's a very different environment. So it's more about trust and trusting the professionals and knowing the professionals than the actual standard paperwork. On the other hand, if you want to do work with Brazil, for example, that's amazing. They have so many hoops that you have to jump in. You have to go through a lot of things, and they even have like a huge IRB, country-based IRB on top of institutional IRBs. So depends on who you are working with. You need to know these things before you jump into trying to do something. So for me, having a relationship with the country, with other professionals, and having something that is meaningful is very, very important. And the last thing I'm gonna say about that too is the reciprocity on this work. How are you able to give something back? Are you just using the people in that country and that population for your own benefit, or are you able to give something back? Are you connecting? And that's when that relationship comes in place, that they can actually trust you if you're doing something with them. And if you are seeing this relationship of something that is gonna bring growth to both ends and benefit to both ends. And I think that's one of the things that I tend to look for and try for. And I would like to see more of in terms of anything that we do internationally, including a scholarship.
I will pick the next one, know the culture, and also expect the unexpected. So I'm from Japan, but I was living in Hong Kong about 10 years. So I'm quite familiar with both cultures. And I did some survey research in these two countries. And my response from the participants was very different. So I understand the culture, but I didn't understand this counseling culture or counselor education cultures in Hong Kong or Japan. So when I did reach out to those professors in counseling related programs in Hong Kong and Japan, the shocking response I have received was they were very uncomfortable. I've got their email address, even though their email address was on their website and on public. So I pick up those emails, contacted them, would you please participate my research study? And they were very defensive and said, I don't like you reaching out to me directly like this. And I was like, okay, I forgot my gender was a female. And those emails came from male professors in those Asian cultures. And I said, yeah, of course. But in United States, those instructors are very supportive for PhD students. But in those countries, that was not very respectful way. And I knew it somewhere, but I forgot those things. And that was the biggest learning for me. And that took for some time for me to process that and understand that. So those are two things. I thought I knew it, but I didn't know at all.
Yeah, those are great examples. Go ahead, Syntia.
I think just piggybacking on that, I think that's very important, because we do, talking about cultural competence and development, we also change. If we are living in this country, we are being more acculturated in the United States, and we are more used to things the way that they were here. And I remember when I was doing data collection for my own research, well, let me see. No, when I was putting together a study abroad to Honduras and to take students there, and just asking the students from Honduras if they want to participate. And I remember sending this beautiful email following all the instructions for US-based information and invitation, and talking about the study and talking about what the benefits are, all the regulations for that. So I sent that invitation, no responses. So I had to kind of take a step back and think, okay, so what's happening? So I actually had to change the message and the way that the message was delivered to actually say, hi, everyone, remember me? I am this and this person. And at some point you knew me, and at some point I taught you a class, and I'm doing this great experience in the United States with the students in the United States, and I wonder if you want to participate. And the sound of that was so much better. And the responses were like, yeah, of course we're gonna help you. And of course, what do you need? What do you want? You know, instead of, oh, there's something massive that people are inviting and it's coming from the United States perspective. So even things like that, we have to be very careful of how do we do it, and remembering that it's a different culture and that they receive messages differently as well. And with that said, I also wanted to touch base on the understanding the real cost of research. And what does that mean? Because again, I think they're all interconnected in terms of the relationship and getting to know the culture and getting to know the procedures. And in some countries, again, if you think Honduras or Belize, that we have been doing a lot of things, when you think about research in the United States, you think about money and you think about the funds that you need to X, Y, and Z for any different things that you need here. But if you go to a different country, they might be able to give you a lot of other type of things. So just having the mindset of, okay, the university or the institution or the population I'm working with had no problems giving me copies, for example, in Honduras. I can definitely find somebody that is willing to give me a bunch of paper, or to print something out, or to send something out by whatever email or phone calls. That's a lot easier than getting other type of funding or other type of money, or translators, for example. That's a lot more expensive. So it's kind of willing into what are resources that you can convey, they put together for both sides of the relationship, and what are they willing to do. And that again goes back to listening to your partners and their needs and what they want, but also what can they give. And the same for you, like what are things that you can easily get from here that they can't, that they don't have access to. So all of that kind of go together in terms of what is the real cost and what are the things that you actually need.
And I would add to that, having had an experience recently in Peru where we were doing the mental health facilitators training, right, which is part of my research. And, it's something you think is a very simple, and I'll put that in quotes, request, right? So I made a request of our host to have Postit notes available to us, because we had an activity we were doing with the students that we wanted to use Postit notes. Well, what we came to learn after some communication is that just a small packet of Postit notes in Peru, like I think it was like 20 Postit notes, cost over $5 in Peru, because that's not something that they frequently use there. So, I mean, it was easy for us to adapt it. We were able to come up with another, solution very quickly. But by having that relationship and the communication, the partner that we were working with in Peru trusted us enough to say, we'll get you Postit notes if you want them, but do you realize how much they cost here in Peru? And it's those little things where when you have that relationship that they trust you enough to say, you know, can we do this in a different way? This might be more cost effective, or, you know, we don't mind having the students come for X amount of time, but please know our faculty aren't being paid while they're here, you know, things like that. So, you know, understanding the true, real, complete cost, I think, really important. All right. Go ahead, Synthia.
Sorry, and with that said as well, kind of getting to know that system of economics and funds in the United States as well. Like, how can you buy things, pay for things? What other more creative ways to actually get to do that from the US standpoint are important as well. We were having trouble with our trip to Belize, again, study abroad to Belize, and trying to get the students from diverse and underprivileged or historically marginalized populations to go to Belize. And so we were trying to find out ways to help them to get there. And we were doing research along the way with that as well. So even trying to figure out how can we help these students, where can we have funds, and how can we help them to go to Belize with us was a very big thing in terms of finding the right allies and people to get to the funds that we needed as well. So being creative and having those relationships are important.
I think we've talked about a couple of these things, but I just want to highlight these because I think these three components of culturally responsive research are really important. So I was hoping that maybe each one of you would take one of them and just talk a little bit about how you've engaged in that aspect of it. And whoever wants to start can start. So, and then you get first pick.
All right, I'll go.
Okay.
Jump off. So mine, I'm looking at the first one, and I think this is something that happens to us all, is that we take ourselves with us everywhere we go, and we have our own perceptions and experiences. And one of the things as I've really been thinking about moving forward in this research, and it's kind of a program evaluation that I'm looking at, basically what went well in the program, what didn't work, and what supports did they need to be more successful after the program was over. And one of the things that I've really started thinking about is the culture there. You don't tend to talk badly about things, especially if someone who is in a position of authority is there with you. And so that's something I've been starting to roll around in my head, is I'm wondering how genuine and transparent they're going to be able to be if I'm physically sitting there because I was their primary instructor and I was their supervisor. And so I think just reorganizing how I'm thinking about it, maybe my physical presence there isn't the best idea in doing this research. Maybe they would feel, more like they could be more open if I'm not there. And I think that's just very different than a lot of times here. A lot of times here, students are very willing to tell us what they think. Sometimes maybe more than we like. And so keeping that in mind, that's very different culturally here to there. And so for me, going back into my memory banks and going, what were some of the things that really shocked me teaching there? And how are these going to relate? Trying to do a really good program evaluation and seeing what are some things that we could intentionally do very differently if we do this program again.
Good one, Trish. Go ahead, Synthia.
So just moving to the next one, the knowledge about other cultures. And I think, again, everything is related to one another. So there is a lot of interconnection with everything that we say in this webinar. But it is important for us to acknowledge and get to know the people, get to know the culture, get to know their way of doing things. And I think we have give a couple of examples of that and how can that impact our work. And to add to that, I also wanted to say that having, especially as an international faculty, it has been very interesting for me to be able to bounce ideas with American faculty, with US people that are more experienced, and I am, you know, I'm a junior faculty, so I don't have the experience of a person that has more years doing this, or that is part of the system and know exactly how to do with the system. And LoriAnn has been an amazing mentor with that as well within this forum. But also just kind of talk about different ideas and different ways of doing things. So I think it is always a win-win situation when you have a partner that is from that culture, if you can, and I know that's not always easy, but if you are able to connect with a person that is from that culture, it will make things a lot easier and a lot faster. And the same, if you are not from this culture, having somebody that can piggyback and just help you pretty much not waste times in things that are already there, that other people already know how to do, and how to get to do things in a faster way. So I think in terms of knowledge, it's just a matter of, even for you to make a decision of which country are you going to be working with people are you going to be working with, institution are you going to be working with, it requires for you to start digging into the culture and digging into what are aspects of that culture that you want to consider. So it's the same for here, like if somebody from outside wants to do a research and they don't know anything about K-crop, for example, which is very difficult. But in general, if they don't know, they don't really know who to go to, which website to look for, with people to talk with, what institutions might be better for them to do whatever research that they are planning to do. So just as an example of things that you can miss if you don't have a contact that can give you information about the culture. If you're able to actually go to that country and have experiences in the country, it will be a lot better just for you to do that and to have the experiences. And even if you are from the culture as an international faculty, as Keiko was saying, we can't forget things. So kind of having that reminder, or having the aspects of people telling you, well, that's not common in the US perspective and we didn't think about it. So that might be something that you want to reflect on. And I had a lot of those moments when I took students to Honduras, because there were things that were normal for me that were not normal for anybody else. So, you know, just keeping those things in mind is important.
Yeah.
Okay. Keiko, were you going to add anything?
Yes. I just speak very quickly about the third one. So I was at the disaster site when tsunami hit Japan almost 10 years ago, and many researchers came into the site from overseas, so they are non-Japanese. And I saw two different ways. One group were more like expert. So we're the research expert, we will be interviewing you, both volunteers and the people who are victims or survivors. And another group of people I recognize was, they were very coming from humble way, but they were asking us to teach them or tell them our experiences. And I thought neither of the ways were quite working for those survivors, because they don't want to be seeing anyone expert culturally, and they didn't want to teach anyone also culturally. Especially asking a feeling was very, very harming for them. So what I noticed was other people came to do was they were there together, and by cooking together, cleaning together. So although they were researchers, they were just doing the things together. This togetherness as a researcher seems to be very, very efficient and helpful for those survivors and also for the volunteers as well. And that was somewhere I felt that was so important to feel, let's do this together. We are talking about relationship and mentality as well. And this is something I've been experiencing in this community LoriAnn is mentoring as well. I have never felt I'm expert from Japan, or I have to really follow particular way because I'm from outside. And I really feel we are all together and to do this together.
was beautiful. So I know, I was like, that was very beautiful. I love that. Thank you. So, you know, obviously some of the things that have already come up are just some of the challenges that you face. You know, when you're going into a different culture, you're going to face different ways of doing things, and not bad or good, just different ways. And so I found this article by LoriAnn that I thought was really helpful. And he proposed these 5 questions just as a prompt to say, you know, have you considered? Have you thought about? And I think that one of the things that we really try to do for each other in the forum is really ask those harder questions, right? So when somebody presents a question and it's not done in a challenging way, it's done in a very supportive way to say, well, have you considered or have you thought about? Because I think that, you know, sometimes with ethical considerations, you don't even think about those things until somebody presents it to you. I don't know if the panel wants to add anything to that or talk about ethical challenges they may have faced in some of the work they've done. I was trying to think of, let's see. I think that for me, I think one of the most interesting things that I had to deal with, I don't know if it falls totally under an ethical perspective, but I was doing some research in Panama. And when I got to Panama, I was told that unknowingly, and this is where you have to expect the unexpected, right? That I could not engage in the work that I had come to do unless I hired a bodyguard. Now, I think it's more maybe a moral dilemma than an ethical dilemma, but for me, as you know, this independent, strong American woman, the fact that I had to hire somebody to protect me was a little conflictual. And so I had to work through that process, right? And I also had to think about the money, the funding that I had for that project. Could I use that funding to hire someone to protect me? Because that wasn't in the original proposal, but they were saying I couldn't engage in the work unless I did this. And ultimately, I actually ended up having to pay for that out of pocket. So I paid for the bodyguard out of pocket so that I could do the work that I had come to do. But, you know, it was one of those things where I had to consult outside of myself because I was having my own internal problems with what was going on, but I had to consult with others. You know, I had to go out, I had to use my ethical decision-making model, I had to consult with my, you know, grant funder, and all of these things to be able to make a solid decision about what to do in that situation, because it was something I definitely hadn't planned for. That's just an example I can think of. Go ahead, Syntia.
And I can give another example. It might not be mine specifically. I don't think I have had too many ethical dilemmas along the way. But I remember within the group that I was telling you about in Toronto, talking about doing research on drug prevention, it was very interesting to sit down around the table with professionals from, I think we have Peru, Brazil, Colombia, Honduras, I believe somebody else from another country in Central America, and just kind of feeling the different opinions and contexts within each country, or of how difficult, or even things like, okay, how do we present a measurement of a drug, and a specific drug, or a specific alcohol measurement, and what does that mean in each country, and which word can we use, even with the Spanish language, and then put it together in English and put it together in Portuguese. So even those things were like, we want to make sure that the people that we are doing research with understand and get what we're talking about. At some point, the people from Brazil also came back and talked about the favelas in Brazil and how do they work, and how can you, again, the same thing of safety, security, and what do you need to do, what can you do, and what you cannot do within the country. So it's not just, again, not just about US-centric ethical dilemmas or issues or challenges, but also how does that relate to the culture in that in the country that is that you're going to have established relationships with.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So I've provided a list of some resources that will help you with these decisions. And one in particular, I'm going to pop out of the PowerPoint here and show you, because I think it's a really great resource that is available through Health and Human Services. And I don't know how many of you are familiar with this. But Health and Human Services has this, I'm trying to move the Zoom stuff out of my way. So the Health and Human Services has a social behavioral research standards, and they actually have them by country. So here you have, I'm trying to get this up here, Canada. My daughter says that all the time and messes me up. She jokingly says that and it messes me up every time. Canada and the United States. And then if you scroll down here and you keep going down, they have European countries, and you can scroll across. They have Asian and Pacific countries, and they have Middle East countries and Latin America countries. And I think, yep, Africa is here. So I think this is a really great resource that has pretty recently been put together. And I think that it's really helpful to have all of this research knowledge and standards in one place. And it's just a really useful resource to have at your disposal, so that you can kind of see before you go into a country, or before you even think about doing something in a country, you know, are there research standards specific to that country? Synthia mentioned, you know, Brazil's countrywide IRB. That's not actually that uncommon. There's several countries that have countrywide IRBs that you have to do in addition to your own institutions and maybe the institution that you're working with. So it's really important to understand what the requirements are. And then here's the international conduct guidelines for social science research as well. So a great resource that I think is important for people to know about. And then I also listed the International Declaration on Core Competencies for Professional Psychology. While we have a counseling focus, that is falls under psychology in a lot of areas of the world. And I find that I actually have it right here, this little document right here, is a really wonderful tool for just basic guidelines for how to treat people with fidelity and justice and autonomy, and really based on those Kitchener principles of what we need to do to be able to engage in realistic and ethical research. So just wanted to share those resources and, you know, provide you with some things to think. And if you haven't figured it out yet, in the chat, I did put the link to the PowerPoint. So if you click on that link, you will be able to download the PowerPoint. So key takeaway. So from our panel members, starting with Trish, as you think about what we've talked about today, what would you say would be the most important thing you would want somebody to take from this?
I think for me, it's just the knowledge that there is a community out there and that there is a lot of support. I don't think it's a excessively large group of people. And so I think just knowing that there is that community and there are opportunities to connect and get involved.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Synthia?
I think it's important to know that it's possible. That you can do this, and that you just have to find other people, as Tricia was saying, and being able to see things from different perspectives to get to the point that will work best for you and for your project and for the people that you're going to be working with. So I think for me that's very important. It is possible, and I know it's difficult when you're hearing all the voices around you saying that you shouldn't, especially as junior faculty, you should not do international work. I think it is possible if you think about it and if you work with somebody else, if you have a good group of support and other people involved in the project, I think you can do it.
Mm-hmm. And one thing I'd add to that, Cindy, is I think you definitely have to go outside your institution sometimes to find that support. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Keiko, what about you?
Yes, I'm similar to what Trish said. The community has been most important for me, and the relationship building, not only in the community, but the areas of my interest and as a population. And the isolation was really somewhere I fell into this really dark area by myself. So the relationship with others have been very helpful to have more ideas and encouragement of keep doing this.
Mm-hmm. Good. Synthia, are there any questions that anybody's posted in the chat yet?
Not that I can see if anybody else want to check. That would be good. Oh, I think I just got one. All right. So David is saying, thank you for your presentation today. The link I see connects to a document called the IRCEP standards. Would you mind resending the link to the PowerPoint again?
Yeah. All right. Thank you, David. I'll fix that real quick. So other questions that you might have, let me know, and then I'll be pulling that up while you guys, I'll let Cynthia take charge while I correct the link real quick. Thanks, David. Questions or comments?
We talk a lot, so now it's your turn.
There is the correct link. While it is important to see the standards too, I think that's a good resource to have. Now you have the actual link.
Well, I guess if you don't have any questions, I wonder if you have any comments in terms of your own work and your own experience. I'm sure that there are people here that have even more experience that we do with things like this, so we would love to hear from you.
I really appreciated this presentation, and I think it managed to highlight both setbacks and as well the advantages of doing this kind of work. I personally haven't done international work, but I have done work with groups of people who didn't belong to my culture. So I've done research with migrants and asylum seekers in Malta, which is my country of origin. And I'm very interested in the topic. So in fact, one of my research is about the internationalization of counselor education. So as we talk about internationalization, how can we kind of as well internationalize our curriculum to be able to kind of even serve better international students who tend to then go back to their countries. I really appreciate, I think even the resources that you shared were very informative.
Thank you.
Can I ask something? Is there a way that new members can join?
Yes, yes, absolutely. In fact, if you are interested in joining the International Research Forum, you can email me at IRCEP@IRCEP.org. I'm going to put that in the chat for everybody.
Okay, thank you.
Email me there. But my plan also, Annabelle, was to just, for all of you that had signed up for the information, I will send you the link to the next two forums. And if you want to join, you can then join, just join us that day.
Yes.
So you'll get an automatic invitation if you came to the session today. And then if you want to continue, just let me know and we will make sure you're on the full listserv for that.
Excellent, thank you.
You're welcome. Any other comments or questions before?
I had a question.
Yes.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for the presentation. That was really great. So I don't do international research right now, but I do a lot of research with refugees. So I think this will, and eventually I would like to expand beyond the US. So I think this is still a good group to join. So I'm still interested in that. But I guess the first obstacle that comes to mind, if you had any tips on this, is language and translation. So if you have any resources that could be, that you can think right, at the top of your head or something that it's easy information, I think that would be very helpful. That's, I think, the main obstacle in doing research with international populations, generally speaking. So that's, the language is the main, how do you overcome that? Or how do you navigate that? I guess that's my main question.
And I think it's a great question because it's actually one that IRCEP itself has been challenged with, because right now we have all of our materials in English. And that's something that the committee has really been striving to work towards, is having more languages represented and having our materials in multiple languages. So it is a challenge that I think we're still dealing with too. Does anybody else on the panel want to comment on that or add to about language resources?
I just want to say that it will depend on what population, what type of language. You might have more access to some resources than others, depending on the language that you are choosing to work with. And again, I think I will always talk about relationships in everything I do. And that's very important. If you have a connection with somebody that speaks the language, that can actually give you more access to information or can help with translations, I think that's better. Again, that the challenge sometimes is what the U.S. institution wants, especially in terms of IRB. So it depends on how flexible they are and what type of things do they want. You might have some more issues. But again, it depends. It is really helpful to have somebody that speaks the language that can give you some tips. On that, I also know that sometimes embassies or consulates have translation services in their own languages, or they might have resources on that as well. So.
Yeah, list of available resources. Because a lot of IRB processes require that one person translate it and another person retranslate it back. So you know, it's not just one person. Sometimes you have to have multiple people to do it. And that's a challenge for sure. Any other comments or questions before we tell you about some additional resources? Okay. Well, some of you know we had a study abroad webinar last month, and I wanted to share the tiny URL so you can get to that. So if you're interested in learning about how to do study abroad immersion programs, we had a really great panel last month who talked about that, and that is available through this link on the PowerPoint. And then we also now have an IRCEP YouTube channel that's going to be where all the webinars are going to be stored. So once this recording renders, I will upload it to the YouTube channel there, so you'll be able to share this with other people who might be interested in that as well. And then finally, we have our references and resources. I've linked to as many of these as I can to support you in your work. And just again, everybody who is attended today and who registered through Eventbrite will receive an invitation to the next 2 International Research Forum meetings. One of the things that we do want to maintain with the International Forum is to keep the groups small enough that they can be supportive and everybody's voice can be heard. So as the groups grow larger, we'll identify additional days and maybe figure out a way to divide people into groups that make sense, and so that it can still be supportive, because we do want it to be small enough that people can all be heard and can get information and receive support as they need to. Okay, so I hope that this has been a helpful webinar. I really appreciate everybody joining us today. Again, the corrected link is the second box link that you need for the PowerPoint, and I will be sending out the International Research Forum invite for December. That will go out early next week. Thank you all. I really appreciate it. Thank you, panelists. You did a wonderful job, as always. Thank you. Have a great day, everybody.